Hello and welcome to another Bodgit and Leggit video. We're continuing with this Cosworth engine build. Now, as you may have known from my last video, we've got piston protrusion, which is a bit too much. So as I turn the crank, you can see, just let me line it up. Now, the pistons are protruding about 1 mil. Which is too much. Now what I've got a WRC head gasket, which is a multi-layer metal head gasket, and believe it or not, these are actually reusable. They're not like a normal head gasket. Obviously they can take a lot more pressure, a lot more abuse because they are a WRC one. Downside is they are very expensive. But what I'm going to do, because I need to find out exactly what size I actually need. This is 1.5 mil. The Group A one is 1.3 mil. So what I need to do is I need to turn it around for a start. I need to find out my compression ratio. Now this is a turbo engine, so the compression ratio should be 8:1. But with my piston protrusion the way it is, I'm not going to be getting that. So I need to get my compression ratio back to 8.1, but not only that, I also need to make sure the valves don't clip the top of the pistons for obvious reasons. So what we're going to do is we're going to what's called a dry fit. So I'm basically going to stick the head back on. Now like I said, with this particular head gasket I can reuse it again. I'm using my old head bolts. I'm going to put the head on, I'm going to torque it down. I'm going to literally squirt water down the spark plug, measure how much water goes in, and then with simple maths you can actually then figure out what the compression ratio is. Then we can go ahead to see what size gasket I need, or I might even be able to use this gasket and shim the engine. So we're going to see, just depending on what basically I need to do. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. You can buy a special thing called Beretta, which basically goes in. It's a big long metal, big long glass tube, and it basically puts the water in, and you count how many cc's they are, and you do your calculations. What I'm going to do is a cheaper way, it works just as well. I'm going to use a syringe. Now my syringe is only measured in millimeters, but then we can convert it to anything we need, and then we can still work out a measurement. So it's the same thing really. There is other ways of doing it. Basically what you can do is you can get a flat piece of glass and you can actually put it over the pistons, fill the pistons up full of water, do the same with the head, so turn the head upside down, put glass over and fill the actual indentation in the head. Then you can measure the head gasket, you can do all that, and you can basically get to the same way. I'm just doing it this way because it just suits me a little bit better. Because I can reuse my head gasket, it's just a bit, I find this way a little bit easier because you can get, it's just, well, you'll see, it's just easier. So what I'm going to do first is, we are going to put the head gasket back on, as you can see, so the head gasket is now on. Then what we need to do is put the head on, torque it down. Tell you, it feels nice sitting on a chair in the kitchen, work on the engine. Anyway, what we need to do before we put the head on is just smear a little bit of grease, just around the piston where it goes in, where it basically goes between the piston and the engine block. Just in case when we pour water down, so the water doesn't go through the rings, just in case. Now, whatever you do, do not use copper grease for this, because copper grease has bits in it and you will score everything and you won't have an engine for long. This is just normal grease, so it's actually wheel bearing grease. There's no bits in it. So what I'm doing, once I've done it, I'm just spreading it around my finger just to form basically a little seal. Now I have got it everywhere, which is too much, but I'm going to wipe off the excess, which is obviously too much, but that's not going to affect us at the minute. Now, once you've done this, you need to make sure you do not turn the crank. As just see if you can see that. I don't know if it's going to show up on camera. This is the one I haven't done anything to, and this is the one you might just be able to see it, kind of the thin bead of grease all the way around. So I'm going to do exactly the same with this one. We'll turn the camera back on and we'll put the head on. So what I need to do is just make sure that's lined up, which it is. It all lines up through all the holes. Oh, also, you didn't realise I'm actually doing this in the house, and she doesn't know yet, so I wouldn't advise you doing it in the house. Anyway, so this is the head. So this is what I was talking about. You can actually put a piece of glass over here with a little hole in. You can actually fill it up that way as well. But that, like I said, not the way I'm doing it. So I'm leaving the piston. I'm leaving the. Let's put it down first. I'm leaving the cams out. I don't need to put the cams in for what I'm doing, because if I put the cams in, you're going to obviously drop them. We don't need to put the cams in for this particular way of doing it. So the cams are staying out, but what I obviously do need to do is line up the head gasket. So this will kind of give you some idea of what the engine is going to look like as we get it back together. Looking more like an engine every minute. So like I said, I'm going to reuse my head bolts. Because I'm not torquing this and obviously running this, I can get away with doing this. These are stretch bolts, so you can't reuse these bolts if you're going to run the engine, but we're not running the engine, so for this particular way of doing it, I'll get away with it. And whatever you do, don't use your new head bolts, because if you use your new head bolts, you won't be able to reuse them. You can't reuse stretch bolts. But like I said, for this particular thing that I'm doing, it's not going to cause me a problem. So I'm just going to screw these down by hand first. Now if you are thinking about putting a WRC head gasket on your Cosworth, what you have to be careful of is you do need the block skimmed. But you want to be careful, it hasn't been skimmed before, and stuff like that, because this is the problem I'm having. My head, I have to get my block skimmed, and it's been skimmed before. That's why I'm having problems. But hopefully we can reuse this. But we can use this WRC gasket, I'm hoping. Now what I'm going to do with this, the stages on this Cosworth engine is 25 newtons, 50 newtons, and then 180 degrees. Now I'm not going to do the 180 degrees for two reasons. One, I didn't bring my degrees thing with me. So what I'm going to do for this, I'm going to do 25, 50 and 100 newtons. Obviously that's not going to be good enough to start it, but I'm not going to start it. Now if you are doing this and you've got an ordinary head gasket, then the head gasket does shrink a little bit under pressure. This is a metal head gasket and it can't really go anywhere. So I'm going to get away with it on this particular one, but just bear in mind that's what you need to do. I've set the torque wrench to 25 newtons first, and you'll hear the click. And what we need to do, we need to tighten it in a special way. So you do two middle ones first, and then you basically diagonal it like you would a wheel. So as you can see, I'm going to move on to the diagonal, come down. Now hopefully this way you might see it a little bit easier what I mean by diagonals. So that's the first 50. As you can see, I'm going diagonals. That means you get the head nicely down evenly. Be the same way I was doing it if I was doing it for real, and obviously doing it properly, where I'm only doing there to see how much compression we've got, so, but you still get the idea. I did that one. I did. So that's the two, that's the 25 and 50. Now if you was doing this, you would do 180. But what I'm going to do is put it to 100 newtons. I'm going to see, now if I go past 180 degrees, well, I'm not going to. So obviously, it's kind of common sense. We'll see how far we get with another 50 newtons. Now, we haven't gone nowhere near 180 degrees. I'm about 90. So I still think that's going to be good enough for what we are doing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove number 1 and number 4 spark plug. I'll just leave it on number 1 so you can see what I'm doing. Right, I'm going to struggle to get the camera directly in that, but you're going to get the idea of what I'm basically doing. I'm using a syringe, as you can see, just a normal syringe. This is a 10mm syringe. Now I've done the other side, so I know what it is. So let's see if these should be exactly the same. It is vitally important you get these spot on. So as you suck up the water past the 10mm mark, and just obviously put the syringe up until it's 10mm so you get the right measurement. So I overfilled the syringe and then set it back to 10 so I know exactly what's going in. Now I've also got a little spirit level and put it across the engine so I know the engine is dead level, because that is important. If the engine isn't level, you can trap an air bubble somewhere and you're going to get the complete wrong reading. So it is important you get the engine level. So definitely make sure you'll be able to see that, but basically the engine is level. That's very important. So I'm going to start with 10 first and just literally squirt it straight down the hole. So that's 20. Now, it is also a good thing to write it down every time you've done it. I know it might sound obvious, but believe me, it's easy. You can get your calculations wrong. What I would suggest is you maybe use the 5mm syringe and just go a lot slower than what I'm going, but I more or less know where I'm going to be safe at this. That there now is 30. 40. I'm going to slow it down a bit now. That there is 45. And it is quite difficult to see when the water is, but what you also need to do is make sure the water just as it's going to hit the spark plug, not the threads, the actual spark plug. And it is very difficult, believe me, to actually see exactly where the top is. So because I'm in the kitchen, I'm using a fork. I'm just going to put it down there and see. Yeah, and I know I'm still okay for the minute. So that's 45. That's now 50. And we're very close, I think. I have now swapped to a 5mm syringe. And I'm going to go 1mm at a time. This is where it's good to get a torch in now. Just take your time with this, there's no rush. So that'd be 51. 52. Hope I'm not getting in the way. Right, that's 55 in there now. 56. 57. 58. It's now 60. 61. 62. Now, that should be there. 62 millilitres. I'll just see if we can maybe get down. You're not going to be able to see, you might be able to see there, but you're not going to see the water level. But that will give you an idea. So 62 millilitres, and now we've come to the top of the spark plug. So now what we need, I need an 8:1 compression ratio. This is going to tell me how much more space basically between the piston and the head that I need. Now I can either make that up with a head gasket or make it up with shims. We're going to see. I'm going to try and keep the WRC head gasket because obviously they are expensive and they are very good. So but we're going to see. So 62 millilitres. I'm going to do a bit of math and we're going to see where we stand. Now the way you work out your compression ratio is quite simple. There's a lot of calculators online that basically do it for you. You put in the information and at the end it gives you your compression ratio. So I'm going to tell you how to do it. You can put it on the calculator and you'll find your compression ratio. What you need to do, you need to know the bore size of your engine. So if you've overbored it or anything like that, you need to know the piston size or the bore size of your engine, your swept depth. You also need the thickness of your head gasket. Now here's where it's important. You need the thickness when it's compressed, not the thickness when it's out the engine. So for example, if you've got a head gasket and it's 1.3 mil, but once the head is on, it compresses to 1.1 mil. Well, that's what you need. That's why I dry built the engine. It makes it a little bit easy, but obviously if you dry build an engine with a normal head gasket, you're going to have to buy another one. Then you need obviously your how much water you've got in it, and like I said, there is other ways of doing it where you can just get a piece of glass, put it over the piston, pour the water in, turn the head upside down and just put the water in. You don't have to build it like I basically did. So you know there's a couple of ways of doing it. It's just this is the way I happen to do mine. Then you put all the information into the little calculator, press a button, and at the end it gives you your compression ratio. It really is as simple as that. Just a couple of, or you also need the dimension of your head gasket, so you need the actual how wide your head gasket is. Because some head gaskets, like the Group A head gasket, has a bigger ring here which will allow more water. So you just need to know them few little things, put them into the calculator and press the button and bang, it's as simple as that. It really is simple. That'll get you a compression ratio. So I'm going to call it for this video, and the next video we are going to be talking about valve clearance, because I don't think we might have a problem with our valve clearance, so we're going to check through valve clearance on the next video. So look, hope it helps, thumbs up and subscribe, and don't forget, get your hands dirty. See you for the next one.